Accidental landlords in Oakland, California are out nearly $7,000 after being forced to pay moving expenses to their tenants after they tried to move back into their own house. I'm Tony, and this is Real Estate Investing and Landlord News. All right, so I have an interesting article for you today, and it's coming out of California. Now, this story is actually coming out of the city of Oakland, and obviously the Bay Area is a very, very progressive, left-leaning, and anti-landlord place. So it shouldn't surprise you that they have these laws in place where if you want to remove a tenant, you have to pay them moving expenses. Now, obviously, this is another one of these rules where I absolutely do not agree with it, okay? Now, if they had a security deposit or whatever, that's fine, but the tenant should have no right to any extra compensation just because you don't want to renew your lease. I mean, that's completely ridiculous. That's taking away your property rights, and then it benefits the tenant in that, they get to live somewhere and then, get paid to leave. I mean, that's completely ridiculous. I mean, I don't get paid when I go buy a new house. No. But the tenants get paid. I mean, what the intent of the law was, this will keep people from being displaced. Well, in this current situation, okay, we're talking about landlords who are in the military, right? They got reassigned to a different location, so they temporarily moved out and they rented their house while they were in this other location, and now they're back and they just want to move back into their old house. Now, just because they want to remove these tenants, they have to pay these tenants nearly $7,000. Now, this case isn't new. This happened a few years back, but it's been going through the court system, right? And it just hit the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals. And I don't like the Ninth Circuit because it's a very far left-leaning Court of Appeals, right? And they lost, okay? They lost their court case. The Court of Appeals said that, hey, the city has the right to impose this ridiculous move-out payment onto them, and so they had to pay the tenant the money. Now, I hope they continue to push this case upwards towards the Supreme Court, because the Supreme Court isn't very left-leaning. In fact, they have a much more conservative lean to them, and if this court goes all the way up to the Supreme Court, it might throw out every single one of these local laws and rules throughout the entire country that force a landlord to pay a tenant to leave their property. Okay? Now, before I get into the article, go ahead, hit the like and subscribe button. Maybe leave a comment down below and let me know what you think, okay? What do you think of this sort of law that forces a landlord to pay, cash to a tenant that maybe the lease ended, maybe you want to get completely out of the rental business, maybe you just want to move into the property yourself. Whatever it is, you have to pay the tenant to leave your property. Now, is that ridiculous or what? In California, the tenants have more rights to your property than you do as the owner, and that is wrong, okay? Now, this article is coming from mercurynews.com, and it says, Oakland landlords lose appeal after paying $6,500 to move into a home they owned. The city mandated payment is not unconstitutional, the court ruled. Well, I think it is unconstitutional. I think that's why it needs to go on up to the Supreme Court, and I think that this ruling was incorrect by the Court of Appeals. But let's see what the article says. An Oakland couple forced to pay more than $6,500 to move back into their own home lost their latest legal battle Wednesday, affirming, at least for now, a controversial city ordinance. Lindsay Ballinger and her wife, Sharon Ballinger, sued the city in 2018, claiming the hefty sum was unconstitutional and unfair. The fee came as a shock, they said, because they began renting out their home before Oakland passed the ordinance requiring landlords to compensate some tenants for relocating. When a federal judge dismissed the case in 2019, the Ballingers appealed. On Wednesday, the Ballingers lost again after a panel of appellate judges affirmed the trial court's ruling, throwing out the couple's case. So yeah, when they originally rented this place out, the law did not exist, okay? Oakland put this law in place after they had moved out and after they had already rented the place out. Now, I'm not saying that they can't put laws in place to regulate landlords and that landlords don't have to comply with those laws. What I'm saying is this specific law is unfair. Okay, it really puts a financial burden on small landlords especially. Now, they put it in place because they thought, oh, well, you know, most landlords are super rich. They got plenty of money and they're just trying to screw tenants over. That's the logic behind all of these ridiculous laws. But like I've said 100 times before, okay, small mom and pop landlords such as this couple here, they get caught up in the dragnet and in the mess and they get screwed over. So they own one rental property and, you know, and they get caught up and they have to pay this tenant $7,000. Not exactly easy, okay? They're disappointed and considering their options, said the Ballinger's attorney, J. David Bremer with the Pacific Legal Foundation. The couple may take the case to the Supreme Court, he said. The lawsuit took aim at Oakland's uniform relocation ordinance that requires landlords to pay tenants thousands of dollars if they are evicted for no fault of their own, such as making way for the owner or a family member to move in or when an apartment is converted into a condo. Tenants' rights advocates say the ordinance helps displaced renters afford first and last month's rent and a security deposit in a new place, and helps prevent them from becoming homeless in the Bay Area's expensive rental market. So they want the current landlord to pay the first and last month rent for the future landlord. Why? Okay, that's not the tenant's money. That is the landlord's money. Okay, so basically, the landlord now is paying out of their pocket so that they can move into somewhere else. That is ridiculous. And simply put, paying for their security deposit. If the place isn't torn up, they'll get their security deposit back. Okay? Now that's a good motivation for the tenant not to tear the place up. So yeah, this is what happens when you get to a place that is so left-leaning that they forget that, hey, property owners have rights too, and they think, oh my goodness, you know, the evil landlords are trying to screw us over, and hey, these people owned one house and they still got caught up in this mess. Oh my goodness. San Francisco, Berkeley, and Palo Alto have similar ordinances, but landlords have complained the laws put an unfair burden on homeowners. Oakland's ordinance eases the hardship of eviction, particularly for tenants who lose their rent control status and are thrust into a significantly more expensive market, according to Oakland City Attorney Barbara Parker. And see, that's what it really comes down to, okay? They are trying to force landlords to comply with all this rent control nonsense, okay? They're putting these burdens upon the landlord, and then they, you know, expect basically us to subsidize low-income housing for all these people. No, that isn't our job. That is the job of the city. If the city wants to subsidize the housing, they need to be making payments directly to the landlords to make up for the difference in the amount of rent so that, you know, we can go ahead and charge our market rates. But now we've got a situation in place where, hey, we've got these small landlords who own one property and they're having to pay $7,000 out of pocket to a tenant so that the tenant can move somewhere else. They didn't get $7,000. They probably, fighting this case, they probably had to rent a place themselves, okay, because they didn't have anywhere to stay, because this was the house they were going to live in. Ah, man, you know, this is so frustrating to me that they never look at it from the landlord's perspective, and they always make the stupid assumption that all landlords are super rich and own hundreds or thousands of units, and then they, you know, end up catching in their web of nonsense small landlords. But yeah, they were saying that they hope, you know, that the lawyer for the lawyer for these landlords said they might push it up to the Supreme Court. And I say they do. I say they should, okay? Push it all the way up to the Supreme Court. And if I was part of a landlord group out in California, I would donate to the fund for this case, okay? This case is very important. And if they win their case, it could potentially knock out these ridiculous laws for all the cities where it's in place throughout the entire state. Okay, That's why I would be helping these small landlords do it. They have the story. They lost the money. You know, they had to go through all of this mess, and this is the perfect opportunity to get those laws completely thrown out. They need to be thrown out because, you know, whether you're a big landlord or a small landlord, there's no reason why you should be paying so that, you know, your tenants can move on to somewhere else. The only thing that really does is it makes it so that the landlords who are operating in the market rate, they have to charge a higher amount of rent because they know that eventually they might have to pay that sum. So knowing that I might have to pay $7,000 to get my tenants out of my apartment, I might be charging my tenants $500 or $600 more per month. Okay? Why? Because I know I might have to end up paying them money so that they leave. And that's the truth, okay? But I mean, obviously rent controlled units, you can't do that, but if you're a landlord, that's a good reason to get completely out of the rental business or convert your units over to condos so you don't even have to deal with this. I guess if you do convert your units over to condos, you do have to pay all your tenants. See what I mean? This is why the big landlords, the big developers, everybody should be helping these small landlords out in their legal case so they can get this law thrown out, because this isn't right. And landlords, you know, we're just suffering under these ridiculous laws and rules and regulations that these states put in place.